So today we're going to be talking a little bit about user types and abilities and what they all mean in Action Builder. It's pretty common to get the question of what does an activist do? Who needs to be an admin, that sort of thing. And so because our Action Builder 100 welcome series is only 4 classes long, and this month has a fifth Thursday in it, we decided we would throw in a bonus training to kind of go through what some of these things mean. So hopefully it'll be evergreen content, and if you're hearing me say this later, thanks for joining us. Okay, so a couple things to get started. We're going to go through some introductions. I know folks were chatting in the chat. If you're a late joiner, please feel free to introduce yourself. If you give a little context for the type of organization that you work with, it'll help me provide some examples as we go on. We're going to talk about what the different user types are. And I'll give a little bit of context, and then I'm going to dive right into showing you what they look like and what they will look like for your users. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will take a minute to try to answer them as we're going, or we can try to type in some answers later or follow up with you. If this is your first Action Builder training, please join us starting next week for our 100 series when it starts over the first week of the month. We recently redesigned our website, so if it looks a little different and you're wondering where things are, you can RSVP and find some information at the link that I just added in the chat. All right, so here we go. So I put a link at the top. It's bit.ly/ab-users. And this is where we will typically keep our chart up to date on any new features that are limited by user type. So definitely check that out in our documentation. Action Builder offers 4 different user account types depending on a person's role in your campaign. The first and kind of the top level, and what many of you probably are admins. This is the only user type that can do uploads, create campaigns, and they're the overall data manager for your organization. So some examples might be of folks who need this particular user type, might be a data director or an organizing director who are really coordinating the whole thing, or your staff person who's responsible for uploading your bulk data. So those are the folks who need to be admins. Another thing to note about admins are that any of the other user types, you can change their type at any time. But for admins, once someone is an admin, you'll need to contact our support team to remove that person as an admin. And so you can always reach us at support@actionbuilder.org. All right. The second user type is a lead, and this person is the lead organizer or campaign director for a specific campaign or maybe a few campaigns. They can do a lot of what the admin does for managing that campaign, like making fields visible, assigning organizers, that sort of thing, but they can only do it for the campaigns they're assigned to manage. And they also cannot do uploads. They can decide which fields to turn on or off for a campaign, but they can't create brand new ones. So basically, they're not the primary data person in charge, but they do have a lot of flexibility and control for a specific campaign that they might be coordinating. So some good examples of that would be a campaign director or a lead organizer for a specific campaign who needs to be able to make some decisions, and maybe you don't want to bother your data director every time you need a field response added. That would be a role for a lead. The next person is an organizer. So this is a person working with data in the field. It can be flexible and see their entire wall chart, or it can have a limited field view. They may be leading activists within the turf, or they may just be taking assignments, but need to be able to add people manually. And an example of some folks who might need this user type are paid organizing staff, organizing committee leaders, or officers or committee chairs who might need to be doing exporting. They might need to be creating tasks or assignments for other user types instead of just taking organizing assignments. So these first three types are our paid seats. And the price will vary depending on which package you get. Our partnership team will sort that out for you when you speak with them about that. And I'm just going to add their contact information in the chat. But these three have varying levels of permissions based on what the person needs to be doing day to day, but they're all paid seats. Activist level seats are free seats. As long as you have one paid seat, you can have as many activists as you need. This is the most limited user type. And it's for users who are expected to enter data, but aren't managing or moving turf themselves. And there's a little asterisk next to it, not just because it's free, but because there are kind of two different permissioning that you can do with activists. You can either give them permission to see part of the wall chart, or you can set up activists so that the only thing they can see is a specific list that you have given them with a specific number of questions that they've asked. And we'll walk through that when you see the different user types. So activists are great for, and let me pull that up here. Activists are great for committee members, activists who are taking work assignments, volunteers who might be working on a phone bank, people who aren't in leadership roles or aren't in primary leadership roles where they're responsible for moving turf, but they may have some organizing assignments and things that they need to look into. So that's the overview. I know it's a lot of information to take in. Like I said, you can always check out our great chart at AB-users. And I'll give you a quick preview of that before we dive into what it looks like. So you'll see a chart like this. There's a column for activists, organizer, leads, and admins. If there's a green check mark, it means they can do it. If there's a little red with a cross through it, it means they can't do it. And as you can see, everyone can add responses, but not everyone can see them. Campaign management tends to be limited to leads and admins. And then when you move to really advanced permission, it's primarily your admins with a couple of things that leads can do as well. So let's dive in. Let's do a walkthrough. So here I'm going to pull over Action Builder. And we will, again, yeah, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Love to see some new faces in the crowd. So I'm going to start, as we walk through this, I'm going to start with the least amount of permissions and then work our way through to the most amount of permissions. So every user that I log in as will have slightly more permissions than the person who had it in the previous one. And it's additive. So, when we move from activist to organizer, the activist will be able to do everything the organizers will be able to do the same things that the activist did, plus a few other things. Make sense? Great. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to log in first as an activist who can just do tasks. So we'll do Jennifer tasks. Ooh, sorry about that. Turn off my screen for just a moment. Um, sorry, folks, I just created this right before we started and trying to switch back and forth between permissions. It's a little difficult. Okay, so we'll get started with this activist user. And first, when we log in, we'll see this campaign page, even though we only have access to one campaign. And so they'll just see the one campaign that they can see and click user type training. Now, this user has permissions, limited permissions to see some folks on the wall chart. They can see only the 10 people who have been assigned to them, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the activists, how you assign that. But they'll see only 10 people who are in the campaign. On the activity tab, they can only see the information that they have edited. They can't see everything else. They can only see the things they've added. They can go into a person's record. So here, if I click on Jessica here and go to notes, I can add a note. But I can't see any other notes that were created. If I go to the info tabs, I can see and add responses to any type of field that's available. So it's not possible to hide fields, but it is anything that's entered in notes is hidden. So here I can say, Jessica has a relationship with Luke. Even though Luke is not on my wall chart, I can still add him as a connection. And this is all fake data if you didn't catch that already. Okay, and so we can add connection info fields. And we can add responses. So she's willing to publish a letter to the editor. Any of these fields we can add responses to. Any of the pieces of contact information we can update. So we can add in any pieces of contact info. We can flag them for follow-up. And then on the wall chart, again, all of this stuff. Well, I guess Luke is in this group. You can add folks who are not in the connections. You can add connections with folks who are not on the chart. Okay. And then again, on the activity stream will update with information for that person, but it will not show other updates that have happened. Okay. If I sign out and then I sign back in again as an admin, which I will do right now. So as an admin, if I go to that particular campaign, I can see all of the things that have been added by Jessica, all of those relationships. And if I go to customize and on the users tab, I can then see this is the activist user here. And there's an assignment that says any people who have this response that are associated with that record, they'll be able to see them on the wall chart. And Suzanne, if you're not familiar with the wall chart, I would definitely recommend checking our 101 training that's happening next Thursday. So I added the link earlier, but you can find it here as well. If we were to remove this people assignment here, and it says user does not have any turf assignments, but we still keep the user's view limited to this assignment and save those changes. If I sign back in as an activist and I go to the campaign, I can't click on the wall chart at all. I can't see anything from the wall chart at all. I can only see this task turf that's been assigned to me. And so here I can click on my assignment. I can see the list of people that have been assigned to me. I can click into the record and answer just these questions, not everything on their record, but just these questions. So, yes, Phil is happy to do all of these things. He's very excited. Um, Phil is very excited. I'm eager to get started. I can add a connection, and here I don't have any wall chart access, but I can add a relationship. Maybe I can't. I will have to check with our team about that and then move on to the next conversation. So I can only see the tasks that I've been assigned. I can only see the people and the questions that I've been assigned. And then here on the activity stream, I can see any changes and updates that I have made, but nothing that anyone else has made. So that is the activist level user, the two different ways you can use activists. So for organizers, and I'm going to go here as an organizer and log in, I have access to just this user campaign. Here, the wall chart is visible. And you can see, again, organizers have been limited. This organizer has been limited to just these 10 results. You can also uncheck the box. That's the profile is the same. You can uncheck the box and give them access to everything. On the activity stream, if the wall chart is limited, they will only be able to see the activity that has happened in the turf that they have access to. They won't be able to see everyone. They can also see anything that they have entered. Now on the tasks tab, in addition to being able to fill out their own tasks, they can manage and create tasks. So here they can create a new task. Say we'll make it a phone bank. That's happening tomorrow. It's people and it's a phone bank type. We go through all of how to set this up in Action Builder 102 training, which is the second Thursday of the month. So I'm just going to do kind of a quick version of this. You can create your query. I'm going to apply it to, again, everyone I have access to, auto create my turfs, and then I can make assignments. So these folks, organizers, if their wall chart access is limited, they will only be able to build turfs, build tasks and assign turfs based on the turf that the assignment that they have permission for. Sorry, saying the word turf over and over. The other thing that you can do as an organizer that you could not do as an activist is that you can now see there's an add new button at the top. And so you can add a new entity, any type of entity. So for example, organization, we'll say this is, Action Network is the organization. And we can create that organization that didn't exist before. You can also promote records to activist level users. So each user type can create users of the type below them. So organizers can click this promote button and they can only create activists. And then again, you can limit the user's view to just the assignment or to a particular response and invite that user. And so the organizers can only add activists. Okay, let's sign out and sign back in as a lead. So one of the things that leads can do here, you can see that this lead has access to multiple campaigns. Anyone can have access to multiple campaigns, but leads are just a little more powerful when you do give them access. So leads here, you'll see a couple of additional changes. On the activity stream, they'll be able to see everything that happened within the campaign, not just in their assignment. So you can see, you can see that people were promoted. They can see and manage tasks that have been assigned to them and created by other users. Manage events. You now see that there is this customize tab that was not there before, and you can do a couple of things here. It really helps you manage your campaigns. So here, one of the things that leads and admins are able to do is they can allow organizers to export. So on the wall chart here, I did not point it out, but on the wall chart here, you can see that there's this export download button. They can decide whether to turn it on or off for organizers. And they can decide which things the organizers are able to download. So here, if I click this button, I can say, we'll let the organizers download the preferred name and the name. We don't want to allow specialized exports because we don't want them to export every single phone number and every single email. They can have email addresses, but not phone numbers and home addresses. We'll let them have their assessments. And then here you can toggle on whether they can restrict certain fields. So, maybe we want to see the member status, but not the role of note or issue notes, things like that. So let's save that. And so we can see 6 properties allowed, 8 fields allowed. On the wall chart with this lead, when we try to export, you'll be able to see these options. There's a toggle for specialized exports, and you can see all of these fields that we can check on or off. But now that we have turned them on for organizers, I'm going to sign back in as the organizer. And you can see here when I download, I can only see the fields that I have put a check mark next to on that management page. So they can download, but they can't download addresses or phones. It's not even an available option here. Okay, the other thing that leads and admins can do, if we go back into this campaign, is that you'll see these 2 menus are now available. Under campaigns, you can see all of the campaigns that I have access to. And that's because I have multiple campaigns. And I'll also be able to see users. And so I can't make any changes to admin and lead users, but from this tab, I can manage any of the activist or organizer level users. So here, if I click on the organizer and remove this X in the corner and uncheck this box and save, I'll have updated the organizer's access so that when they log in, they can see the full wall chart because it's not limited here. The other thing that I can do is I can remove a user. So for example, here, if we want to remove this user, I can disable the account. And I can either disable it immediately or set it for later. Later is really good when you are creating user accounts or setting up user accounts for phone banks. So if folks are going to be calling on Wednesday afternoon, you can set it up to be disabled, by the end of the day on Friday. And then it will disable it automatically at that time, so you don't have to remember later on to do it. So that is something that your leads have access to do and your admins have access to do. Back in my campaign here, you can see I still have all the same options that organizers have. I can add a new user. The other thing that I can do here under the Customize tab is that leads have access beyond just this default properties here. They have access to manage info, top lines, entity settings, as well as users, integrations, and complex filters for that campaign. So what do I mean by that? On the info tab, you can see I have these fields that are visible in this campaign. If I click the edit info button, I can choose whether to turn a field on or off. I can also choose which responses to make visible or not for each field. The difference here between leads and admins is that as a lead, I can't create a new field. I can only enable the fields that already exist. And if I try to go to the administration page, it'll just take me back to this campaign login because I don't have access. On the top lines, so a campaign lead really has the ability to customize the feel of the campaign. And that's why I had mentioned earlier that it's great for the team lead or the campaign director to be able to be a lead, because here they can set the top lines. So which fields appear and are highlighted on a campaign, which relationship fields are highlighted in the campaign. And they can also set the entity settings. So here on the entity settings tabs, which fields are shown when they add a new entity. So here, say I want volunteer type and role of note to be shown when someone goes to create a new entity. And then here you can set the spotlight field. And then here you can set the conversation logging, which appears at the top of a person's profile. So every time I have a conversation, for example, I want them to collect an assessment, to have a note, and to mark the relationships that they have with people. And so now on the wall chart, if I click into a person and I do the quick actions, log conversation, we mark whether we had it in person, over the phone, or via email, and then it's those questions that we've highlighted. So it's a quick way, in addition to having organizers set up specific tasks with lists of users, or I'm sorry, of activists and questions to ask them, a lead can set a standard conversation for the log conversation link. Okay. And then again, if I click on add new, we have the standard pieces of contact information. And then at the bottom, you see these two new fields that my lead added. Great. Any questions about leads versus organizers? Does it make sense? Okay, great. Okay. So the last user then is our admin, which most of you are hopefully familiar with, which is probably why you're here. But if you're not, we're going to walk through it. Admins have access to all of the campaigns that are in your instance. As I mentioned, once a user is made an admin, you'll need to contact the support team if you need to remove or downgrade their access. They can do everything a lead can do, plus they can create and edit campaigns in general. So if we go to the campaign tab, you can see this admin menu where they have access to everything. So we can create a new campaign or duplicate an existing campaign or archive an existing campaign. You can manage all of the users. So you can remove or downgrade leads, organizers, and activists and set their permission levels. You can create new entity types. And so since this is our training database, you can see we have a lot of entity types. And then you can create and archive IDE fields. You can create connection types. And again, it's our training database, so we have lots of new different connection types. You can create and archive info fields for each of your entities and each of your connections, as well as for events. And so this is the page that the lead was trying to access but didn't have access to. So here you can add new fields, and then the leads can decide whether to turn them on or not. You also have the ability to manage whether a fields can have any user add responses, which is great for things like issues. Make this field read only, which is good for when you're doing syncs and integrations. Attach responses and make them multi-select or not. So all of that is an admin only privilege. You can manage your assessments. And now a relatively new feature, you can set different assessment labels and descriptions for each of your entity types. You can manage which integrations are allowed, and probably most importantly is that you can upload files, which this is only accessible to admins. So that is a lot of information to take in. There are just a couple things that I wanted to highlight. The main thing that I do want to highlight that organizers, leads, and admin can do is on the campaign page. Sorry about that. On the campaign page, again, as I mentioned, you can promote folks. And something to really keep in mind with your leads, organizers can only add activists, and activists are free accounts. So in terms of data safety, it's important to have a protocol, but it doesn't affect anything kind of long-term for your account. But leads can add organizers. So here as an admin, I can add leads, organizers, and activists. As a lead, I can add organizers and activists, and organizers are a paid seat. So make sure that you have an internal process for your leads, that they understand that when they create organizer user accounts, that it's one of the seats that's part of your contract. Some leads didn't know that. They just thought, since I can create them, it must not be a big deal. And so it's really important to just kind of keep an eye as an admin on what's happening in your instance when you grant these level of permissions to other folks. Okay. So back to the walkthrough. I just want to highlight again. So think before you even start creating your accounts, think about like, who are these roles? What role do they fill and what do they need to have access to? You can always bump someone up if they start using the system and they need it more. And then check out the link again, bit.ly/ab-users as we create new features. Like just in this last release, we added the opportunity for admins to upload a list of folks who can be removed from a campaign. So that was added to this great sheet here. So always check out if you're ever unsure, you can always check out that list. It's being constantly updated. Are there any other questions today? If you have individual specific questions, you can always contact support@actionbuilder.org. You can also sign up or contact our partnerships team at join@actionbuilder.org. Although I do see Natalia in the chat, and I'm excited to hear folks are interested in learning more. Great. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I will stick around for a little bit longer if anyone has technical questions or use cases. But otherwise, have a great afternoon and happy Halloween tomorrow.